Hello, everyone. I'm Kevin Gostola, managing editor for Shadowproof. Welcome to the Dissenter Weekly, and I'm pleased to be joined this week by John Kiriakou. We're doing a bit of an unconventional show because typically we would run down stories from the past week, much like I do with John on criminal justice stories over at Loud and Clear. But this week, because our show coincides with National Whistleblower Appreciation Day, I thought it would be good to invite John, a whistleblower himself, to join us again and talk about some of the state of whistleblowing, as well as to appreciate some whistleblowers who have come forward who are lesser known. We know a lot of individuals like Chelsea Manning and Edward Snowden, but there's some unsung heroes and heroines that are worth bringing to your attention on National Whistleblower Day. So thanks for joining, John.
Happy to do it.
And so this will be shared more widely later. And to begin on National Whistleblower Day, I would ask you what you think about the state of whistleblowing under President Donald Trump and how you feel we're coming up on the completion of the first term. We won't get into whether he's going to lose or win. I think that's a separate political discussion. But we can begin to assess what it's been like for whistleblowers in the last 4 years, and to even start distinguishing it from President Barack Obama's administration potentially.
About 3.5 years ago, Kevin, I gave an interview to Mint Press News, along with Tom Drake and Jesselyn Radak and a couple of other people. And I was the only one who said that I was actually optimistic vis-a-vis whistleblowers with the election of Donald Trump. And my reasoning was that things couldn't possibly get worse than what they were under Barack Obama. I was wrong. Not only has Donald Trump exponentially increased the number of investigations, leak investigations through the Justice Department, looking for people who have been speaking with the media, but for those people who have been prosecuted, their sentences have been even longer than they were under the Obama administration. So I was just clearly wrong. Unfortunately, so things have been bad. Reality Winner got 5.5 years. We have Daniel Hale awaiting his own trial. We have Terry Albury, who should have been celebrated rather than incarcerated, doing a stretch in Minnesota. Things just have been all around bad under Donald Trump.
Yeah, and I would say that we immediately saw the intensity to which Donald Trump was going to use language and rhetoric that was very vengeful against punishing these people. And I think that empowering Jeff Sessions to run the Justice Department early on was a very big statement that this was an escalation from Attorney General Eric Holder. I have no love or admiration for what Eric Holder did, especially because he opened up that grand jury investigation into WikiLeaks and was bringing a lot of these cases. But my concern is that that Jeff Sessions and then now Bill Barr represent something far more dramatic.
Oh, I have to agree. Like you, I am no fan of Jeff Sessions, but no fan of of Eric Holder either. It was Eric Holder who held a press conference on the day of my arrest to say that I had been taken off the street, surrounded by all of his deputy attorneys general. So yeah, I have no love of Eric Holder, but you're right. Jeff Sessions was worse. Jeff Sessions initiated 5 times the number of investigations that Eric Holder did. And so things got much worse for a lot of people under the Trump administration. And Bill Barr is no different. We should look back to the immediate aftermath of the election, where we didn't really know where Donald Trump stood on so many of these issues, like Ed Snowden, for example. And Trump said that if he had the ability, that he would give Snowden the death penalty. Well, that says it all right there. I mean, you don't even really need to dig any deeper than that. That's what whistleblowers are up against in this administration.
Yeah, and now I think we should also bring up the futurists and the possibility that a lot of what we see will be continued under a Biden administration, because there is a dynamic I want to have you help me highlight, which is that the President Barack Obama's administration inherited several leak prosecutions from the Bush administration, but did not cancel them, did not do away with. They proceeded to build on the work that was done by the Bush Justice Department. And do you agree with me that we will probably see that with a Biden administration? If Biden
Yes.
successfully defeats Trump, they're going to carry on, because continuity is usually what government prizes the most.
Yes, true. And Joe Biden has gone out of his way to say to the press as recently as yesterday that a Joe Biden election would be a third Obama term. That's what he wants people to believe. Well, from my perspective, that's not necessarily a good thing. We're going to see the same kinds of prosecutions that we saw under the Obama administration. We're going to see a Nixonian obsession with national security leaks that we saw during the Obama administration. In my own case, my whistleblowing came during the Bush administration, George W. Bush, and the FBI investigated me at the tail end of the Bush administration, and they decided not to prosecute me. They issued a declination letter declining to prosecute me. It was the Barack Obama Justice Department that reopened the case and that went after me. At one point, while I was awaiting trial, one of my attorneys ran into Michael Mukasey, the former. What was Mukasey? Was he Attorney General? Yes, Attorney General under Bush. And Mukasey asked how my case was going, and my lawyer said it's an uphill battle. And Mukasey said, I wouldn't want to touch that case. And that really put it into perspective. There was no case against me in the Bush administration, but the Obama administration, once they zero in on you, there's really nothing that you can do. And that's what has happened to these other whistleblowers during the Trump administration. The government has zeroed in on them. A policy decision was made in 2017 that whistleblowing, especially national security whistleblowing, was a bad thing, and those whistleblowers would be prosecuted.
So help me flesh out some of these contradictions. I think that on the whole, it's really good that we have National Whistleblower Appreciation Day. And I would say overall that I'm glad that there's someone like Senator Chuck Grassley who has pushed forward and stood up for at least the modest whistleblower protections that we've been able to win. Both Chuck Grassley and Ron Wyden have been two of the only senators who stand up on whistleblower issues in the past 10 years. They're one of the only 2 or 3 senators you can point to who have challenged the way an insider threat program has been rolled out and instituted in the FBI and other intelligence agencies. That being said, the resolution for establishing Whistleblower Appreciation Day is incredible to me because it contains so many caveats. I'd like to just take a moment to read it to you so you can see the resolution they passed for this year, this particular year, from Chuck Grassley. What he decided needed to be in here was this very clear-cut statement. It'll resonate with you because he's excluding you from Whistleblower Appreciation Day. It says in the resolution, whereas it is the public policy of the United States to encourage, in accordance with federal law and consistent with the protection of classified information, including sources and methods of detection of classified information, honest and good faith reporting of misconduct, fraud, misdemeanors, and other crimes to the appropriate authority at the earliest time possible. Now, therefore, be it. And then it goes on to outline what they're doing. But as I'm pointing out there are these disqualifiers for whistleblowers.
Yeah, there always are. Chuck Grassley is probably the best friend that whistleblowers have on Capitol Hill, and that's not saying a lot. He's certainly not my friend. Chuck Grassley's not done anything for me. A couple members of Congress had. My own congressman at the time, Jim Moran, Lloyd Doggett of Texas, Senator John McCain, they were all great, and I appreciated the help very much. Chuck Grassley was not a help. And Chuck Grassley speaks at the National Whistleblower Day luncheon every single year. Oftentimes, another congressman will stop by and wave and, bask in his applause. But this year, the speaker is Michael Horowitz, who's the Justice Department's Inspector General. I wrote a piece in Consortium News a couple of days ago in which I said that I was boycotting the event this year because it's Horowitz, and Horowitz, in my view, is a fraud. I have a friend, an FBI whistleblower named Darren Jones, and Darren Jones has gone through a nightmare for the past 8 years plus, thanks in large part to Michael Horowitz. And I don't think we should be honoring the man. I think we should be criticizing him and demanding that he respect whistleblower rights, which he doesn't.
And the other thing that I want to add here to this broadcast before we get on to celebrating individual whistleblowers is that I'll never forget that Chelsea Manning was convicted on National Whistleblower Day. That she was on the same day that we were celebrating. There's this case that involves a soldier who stood up to torture, I believe is the actual case that sparks that if you read Chuck Grassley's establishment of the National Whistleblower Appreciation Day, it goes back to the time period of the Revolutionary War. So that's the case. And on the same day, on July 30th, that's the day that the U.S. military court at Fort Meade found Chelsea Manning guilty of violating the Espionage Act, which I think just brings out one of the more glaring contradictions. And I think, to you, I say, what are your thoughts about how there really aren't any, and I think to flip this around, it's really on us to do something to agitate and try to win more protections, but there's no mechanism for people like you to blow the whistle on war and war crimes and malfeasance in war zones. And it's so easy to be found and labeled a traitor because there's not very good channels set up for anybody who wants to expose that kind of waste, fraud, and abuse.
Right. Senator Roy Blunt of Missouri called me a traitor. And he wasn't the only one who called me a traitor. But you're exactly right. And you point out exactly what the problem is. The problem is that the whistleblower protection law says that you have to report malfeasance, that is waste, fraud, abuse, illegality, or threats to the public health or public safety through channels. And through channels means to your boss, to the inspector general, maybe to the general counsel, finally to the oversight committees. That doesn't work. Tom Drake, the NSA whistleblower, went through channels, went to the oversight committees, went to the inspectors general, and was rewarded with 9 felony counts, including 7 counts of espionage. Now, the case fell apart, but not before he was ruined financially and personally. If you work in the intelligence community, if you work in the military, you can't go through channels because it's your channels that are violating the law. It's the oversight committees who are complicit in it. For example, I wanted to blow the whistle on the torture program. I worked in the CIA's Counterterrorism Center. My bosses created the torture program. The inspector general ignored the torture program. The general counsel legally approved the torture program. And the oversight committees secretly funded the torture program. So the only place for me to go was to the media. And that's true of most maybe, national security whistleblowers. Of course, when you go to the media, you take your future in your hands because you're probably looking at an espionage charge or multiple espionage charges, even though that's not espionage. That's what the Obama administration did, they set a precedent by charging people with espionage for speaking with the media. So it's very dangerous. You know, with some regularity, I get calls from people who are considering becoming whistleblowers. And I always tell them, think long and hard before you make this decision, because your friends are going to walk away from you. Your coworkers will never speak to you again. In many cases, it'll split your family. It may wreck your marriage. You'll never, ever work in government again. You'll probably never work in corporate America either because of the background investigation necessary. So you have to really believe in your heart that you are doing the right thing. It's the right thing for you. It's the right thing for the country. It's in defense of the Constitution, and then act. And the other thing that I always tell them is don't make the mistake that I made and be reactive. Be proactive and engage an attorney who specializes in whistleblower defense before you go public. Then at least you can partially control the narrative.
And I may be dragging us into a quick stand here, but I think it's important to make this point, which is that this is a free speech issue
Sure
to
is.
me. This is something where people's First Amendment rights aren't being protected, and this country, on both sides of the political spectrum, has spent the last 3 to 4 weeks arguing about something that may or may not be new called cancel culture. And it seems like the biggest examples of cancel culture in modern American history are happening to whistleblowers who are told that they can't speak out by their own government. And we've actually, I don't think a lot of Americans realize this. We've expanded an insider threat program that isn't just policing classified information and its management. It's making sure that any government employee who isn't in the senior ranks does not talk to the press.
Absolutely correct. And another part of that is in the intelligence community, employees are actively encouraged to rat out their coworkers. For example, if you see somebody printing something that, I don't know, it's maybe unusual for him to be printing a cable from a certain place, you're encouraged to rat him out to the CIA's counterintelligence center so that they can prevent people from being whistleblowers before they make their revelations. I mean, this is right out of 1984. You have people spying on the people that they sit next to and work with. And that's how the CIA is keeping a lid on whistleblowing, keeping a lid on wrongdoing. You know, remember, when you are hired to work in the federal government, on your very first day, you put your right hand up in the air and you swear to protect the Constitution from all enemies, domestic and foreign. I took that very seriously, and I thought that that's exactly what I was doing. I would do the same thing again today. But there are a lot of people who have been discouraged from saying anything, even when they see waste, fraud, abuse, or illegality.
All right. So as we move toward the end of the segment, I want to highlight some of these whistleblowers that have come forward in the past years. I'll just begin very generally before I throw it to you by noting that this show has done a lot in the last months on several stories, and a trend that I've noticed is the incredible constant stream of people at corporations and other workplaces that are speaking out as those businesses do not protect their safety during the pandemic, maybe say that they're not allowed to wear a mask, force them to go to work when it's unsafe and there are outbreaks. And I think these are people who don't have resources to defend themselves and to pursue court cases. So it's important that we acknowledge, and those cases largely exist outside of the national security cases that we talk about most of the time on our show. So I just want to show solidarity with them. But you brought a couple whistleblowers to the show to talk about.
Yeah, I'd like to talk about a couple. Darren Jones being the first. I mentioned Darren a few minutes ago. Darren Jones was a senior contract specialist, GS-15 at the FBI, senior officer. And he found waste, fraud, abuse, and illegality in that a senior FBI agent had given a $60 million contract to one of the Beltway bandits here in the Washington area, and then retired and took a job with that Beltway bandit, making double, triple what he was making at the FBI. That's clearly illegal. And so Darren Jones went to the Inspector General, Michael Horowitz. He wrote a letter. The letter was ignored. He wrote a second letter. That was ignored. Then he decided to go to his congressman. So he went to his congressman, went to the Oversight Committee, and was immediately fired by the FBI. That was 8.5 years ago. Now, he has challenged his firing for 8.5 years, and he's not worked again. His wife is expecting their third child. His wife has been the breadwinner for the family for the past 8 years, as he has spent the time trying to clear his name. But they wouldn't do anything to listen to his complaints, to listen to his whistleblowing, to listen to the allegation of wrongdoing. They just wanted him out, and they wanted him silenced. This is an ongoing issue. He's still fighting for his rights. Another one would be Terry Albury. I'm in regular touch with Terry Albury. Terry is a former FBI agent from Minneapolis, Minnesota. He's an African American, and he came across a memo, an internal memo, done by the FBI that proved systemic racism in the organization. Well, everybody knows that there's systemic racism in the FBI. There are almost no black FBI agents. Well, this memo proved it. And so Terry made a copy of the memo and sent it to The Intercept. As soon as it was published, he was the subject of an investigation. They went back to look at security camera footage, computer usage, who printed the memo, and they arrested him in a matter of days. He was sentenced to, I think it was 3.5 years in prison, and he immediately threw himself on the mercy of the FBI and the court, and they didn't care one iota. He got a longer sentence than I ever got, certainly, and is about halfway through his stretch right now. He's got a terrific wife who has stood by him, and the truth of the matter is, he really did report evidence of waste, fraud, abuse, or illegality. I mean, it's illegal to discriminate against a person because of their race. Another one would be Daniel Hale. My heart goes out to Daniel Hale. Daniel is a drone whistleblower. He is represented right now by Jessalyn Radack, who's a well-known whistleblower in her own right, and he's awaiting trial. But they've gotten to David, the government has. They've alienated him from his friends, from his family, from his supporters. He struggles with depression, all the while knowing that what he did was the right thing to do. You know, we kill innocent civilians all the time with drones, and then we just deny. So he went public with it, and he went public like with his own face on camera and in his real name. He went public and said that the military and the intelligence services were violating U.S. and international law by killing civilians with the use of drones. And so he was arrested. His pre-trial period has dragged on for 2-3 years now. He's still awaiting trial, and I think he's going to have a tough time.
And as I understand, I believe the trial was pushed because of the pandemic and was in fact going to be something that happened in March, but it got pushed. So I'm going to just throw a couple cases out, and then we'll let you have some final words. The two whistleblowers I want to highlight, I actually found from what I think is a very thorough and fantastic book. Tom Muller wrote this book called Crisis of Conscience: Whistleblowing in an Age of Fraud. It's very comprehensive, and there's a lot of very good whistleblower cases highlighted in there. But I wanted to bring up a couple nuclear energy whistleblowers that have come forward in the last decade or so, because I think it's something that we just don't seem to care about. But the Hanford nuclear site, according to Tom, has the most whistleblowers per capita than any place in our country because of what's going on there. And Walt Tomasaidis is a whistleblower who came forward in 2010. This was when Bechtel is the contractor. People will know Bechtel as a notorious military contractor. Bechtel had a contract in Iraq. And so Walt blew the whistle on how they were planning to mix a waste, and it has to be done properly, or else you're going to cause an explosion. And he raised concerns, but the bureaucracy there and new management said that they were no longer going to care about the safety and the environmental degradation that would be caused. And so they pushed forward to meet deadlines and didn't try to get the process right. And they came down on Walt, and Walt was eventually terminated in around 2010. But he did send, with some really good dark humor, this email to his superiors: have a big bang on July 4th to celebrate. And then Donna Bush is also connected to Walt, heard him raise concerns around the same time period, and she was working on the waste treatment plant. And her job was to certify that the waste was safe, that it was going to meet all the technical safety and environmental requirements. And she herself insisted that there needed to be further reviews of these hazards that Walt was complaining about. But yet management didn't want to take this step, and also labeled her the rules girl. And the misogyny that existed within this corporation is so on display. I mean, there are things in these memos that are written about by Tom in his book that suggest just how misogynistic they were towards her. And they basically feared her because she was going to create another whistleblower incident. And so she refused to toe the line and certify these environmentally dangerous waste permits. She knew that she could go to jail if she falsely certified them. And eventually she got forced out and fired in 2014. And so those are my examples of whistleblowers that most people probably do not know. Now, as we wrap up here, John, any closing thoughts? Anything you want to say? Maybe if you have anything positive. I mean, there are a lot of people. I think we outline a lot about the system and the way it can snuff you out and extinguish everything that you're trying to do in your career and your life, and ruin you. And yet we still see people who are willing to listen to their conscience and come forward.
I think what I would say first is thank you to those people who supported me. I mean, even with just a kind word. And I still get emails literally every single day from complete strangers thanking me for what I did. The truth is, I want to thank them for even thinking about me. Because when this happens to you, when you blow the whistle on something and you're arrested and prosecuted, you really do learn who your friends are. And you realize that you have probably fewer true friends than you realized. So even just a kind word to a whistleblower means the world. And I'll repeat something else that I said. If you are knowledgeable of waste, fraud, abuse, illegality, or threats to the public health or public safety where you work, and you're thinking about blowing the whistle, hire that attorney first before you say anything, before you tell anybody. Protect yourself, because nobody else is going to do it.
All right. Thank you for joining us, John. And as I sign
pleasure.
off, I wanted to take a moment to quickly encourage you all to go subscribe at dissenter.substack.com. This is an accompanying newsletter that was launched in the last week or two, covering whistleblower stories extensively there. And then this show airs every week on Thursday at 4 p.m. Eastern on YouTube and on our Facebook page at at the Shadowproof Facebook page. And then it's archived and we share clips over the weekend at the end of the week. So once again, thank you all for joining, and we'll be back next week with another edition of the Dissenter Weekly.